Emilia and James, the perfect couple. They were the epitome of love and happiness, always seen together, always smiling. A love story straight out of a fairy tale, filled with magical moments and endless joy. At least that's what everyone believed, especially Emilia. She cherished every moment, every memory. James, with his charming smile and easy confidence, had swept her off her feet. He was everything she'd ever dreamed of. He proposed under a canopy of stars, a diamond winking on her finger, a promise for forever. It was a moment straight out of a movie. Their wedding was a grand affair, a celebration of their love witnessed by all their friends and family, a celebration of love, or so it seemed. The day was filled with laughter, joy, and endless toasts to their future. Emilia, radiant in white, a vision of happiness. She was the picture of a perfect bride. James, handsome in his tailored suit, gazing at her with adoration. They were the perfect match. Amongst the well-wishers stood Olivia, Emilia's sister. She watched the couple with a mix of emotions. Her smile was brittle, a mask barely concealing the envy simmering within. She felt a pang of jealousy with every cheer. Olivia had always felt overshadowed by Emilia. No matter what she did, she was always in her sister's shadow. Emilia, with her sunny disposition and effortless charm, had always been the favourite. Everyone adored her. The favourite daughter, the favourite friend, the favourite everything. Emilia was always in the spotlight. Olivia, relegated to the shadows, watched and seethed. She felt invisible, her accomplishments always overlooked. Now, witnessing Emilia's happiness, a dangerous thought took root in Olivia's mind. A thought that grew with each passing moment, a thought that whispered of possession, of taking what she believed was rightfully hers. She felt a burning desire to change her fate, a thought that would set in motion a chain of events with devastating consequences. The perfect picture was about to shatter. Olivia, despite her resentment, was a master manipulator. She knew how to charm, how to feign concern, how to weave a web of deceit. She began by sowing seeds of doubt, subtle whispers in James's ear, questioning Emilia's love, her loyalty. "Emilia works late again," she'd comment, a hint of concern in her voice. "It's a shame you two don't get to spend more time together." She'd casually mentioned seeing Emilia laughing with a male colleague, planting the seed of suspicion. James, initially dismissive of Olivia's insinuations, found himself slowly being drawn into her web of lies. He started noticing things he hadn't before. Emilia's late nights at work, her tired smiles, her infrequent phone calls. The seeds of doubt, planted by Olivia, were beginning to sprout. Emilia, oblivious to her sister's treachery, remained caught in the whirlwind of her happiness. She trusted Olivia implicitly, unaware that the serpent she held close to her bosom was slowly poisoning her paradise. James, once a man of unwavering affection, grew distant. His touches, once filled with love, became hesitant, almost reluctant. His eyes, once reflecting adoration, now held a flicker of suspicion. Emilia, sensing the shift in him, was bewildered. She tried talking to him, tried bridging the chasm that seemed to be growing between them, but James, his mind clouded by Olivia's poison, withdrew further. Olivia, seizing the opportunity, presented herself as a sympathetic ear to both. To Emilia, she was the concerned sister, offering solace and advice. To James, she was the understanding confidant, listening to his doubts, validating his fears. Unbeknownst to Emilia, Olivia was playing both sides, manipulating them both to her advantage. She was a puppeteer, pulling at their heartstrings, orchestrating their downfall with every carefully crafted lie. Emilia and James's marriage was showing signs of strain. Their conversations were strained, punctuated by awkward silences. Their laughter, once a constant melody in their home, was now a distant memory. James, consumed by doubts, started working late, finding solace in his work, away from the suspicion and the guilt that gnawed at him. He felt torn, his heart aching for the love he once shared with Emilia, his mind poisoned by doubts. Emilia, heartbroken and confused, turned to the one person she thought she could trust, her sister. Unaware that she was confiding in her tormentor, she poured her heart out to Olivia, seeking comfort in the very arms that were orchestrating her misery. "He's distant, Olivia," Emilia confessed, her voice thick with unshed tears. "It's like he doesn't even see me anymore." Olivia, feigning concern, wrapped her arms around her sister. "Oh, Emilia, don't worry. It's probably just work stress. You know how demanding James's job can be." Emilia, desperate for reassurance, clung to her sister's words. Olivia, sensing her vulnerability, pressed on, her voice a soothing balm to Emilia's raw emotions. "Why don't you give him some space? Focus on yourself for a bit. Maybe a spa day, a girls' trip. I'm sure he'll come around." Olivia's advice, seemingly innocuous, held a hidden agenda. Emilia was preoccupied with her own worries. Olivia saw an opportunity to further her insidious plan. She began spending more time at Emilia and James's house, always ready with a sympathetic ear for James, a shoulder for him to lean on. She'd casually mention Emilia's extravagant spending habits, how her sister seemed bored with their life, how she missed their carefree days before James. Each carefully chosen word chipped away at James's already wavering trust in Emilia. Olivia made sure to always be around James, filling the void she herself had created. She'd cook him his favourite meals, laugh at his jokes a little too loudly, and offer him lingering glances that spoke of a different kind of affection. One evening, while James was working late in his study, Olivia entered, her movements uncharacteristically clumsy. She was wearing a silk top that Emilia had gifted her, but on Olivia it seemed to cling more provocatively, the buttons straining. "Just fetching a book," she murmured, her voice a husky whisper, her eyes meeting James's for a fleeting, charged moment. The mask of concern had slipped, revealing the calculated seduction beneath. James, taken aback by her sudden change in demeanour, mumbled a response, his gaze lingering on Olivia's retreating figure. A knot of confusion tightened in his chest. This wasn't the Olivia he thought he knew. Or was it? Olivia had always coveted Emilia's life. Emilia, with her effortless grace, had always attracted attention, admiration, love. Olivia, forever in her shadow, had grown to resent her sister's happiness. James's apparent success only fueled Olivia's envy. His expensive watch, his tailored suits, his luxurious car, all were symbols of a life she craved, a life she believed Emilia didn't deserve. Olivia convinced herself that she would be a better wife to James, more appreciative of his success, more attentive to his needs. Her envy morphed into a twisted sense of entitlement, a belief that she had the right to claim what she desired, even if it meant destroying her own sister's happiness. Olivia's web of deception grew more intricate, more insidious. She played the victim to both Emilia and James, feeding their insecurities, widening the rift between them. To Emilia, she confided that James seemed distant, preoccupied, as if something was troubling him. She suggested that perhaps their marriage had lost its spark, that James might be longing for something more. To James, she painted a picture of Emilia as a materialistic, self-absorbed woman who took his love for granted. She hinted at Emilia's supposed infidelity, planting seeds of doubt that took root in his heart. Olivia revelled in the chaos she was creating, her heart a cold, calculating stone. She had them both exactly where she wanted them, vulnerable, confused and ripe for the picking. James found himself drawn to Olivia's newfound attention. Her laughter seemed to chase away the cloud of suspicion that had settled over him. Her touch, however fleeting, sent a jolt of something unfamiliar through him, a dangerous cocktail of excitement and guilt. Olivia, a skilled huntress, knew exactly how to play her prey. She'd brush past him, her hand lingering on his arm a moment too long. She'd gaze at him with wide, admiring eyes, her lips parted in a silent invitation. James, his resolve crumbling under the weight of her calculated seduction, tried to rationalize his growing attraction. Olivia was just being kind, he told himself. She was just trying to help. But deep down, a treacherous voice whispered that it was more than that. Olivia, sensing James's weakening resistance, turned up the charm. She began inviting him out, just the two of them, for coffee, for a walk in the park, for a break from all the drama. James, torn between his loyalty to Emilia and his growing fascination with Olivia, found himself agreeing to these outings. He justified them as harmless, a way to clear his head, to figure things out. But with each stolen moment he drifted further from Emilia, deeper into Olivia's web. Olivia, a master of deception, made sure that their encounters were always witnessed, always open to interpretation. A casual lunch that stretched into the afternoon. A chance meeting at the supermarket that ended with lingering goodbyes. Emilia, heartbroken and confused by James's growing distance, confided in Olivia, unaware that she was pouring her heart out to her tormentor. Olivia, feigning concern, offered empty platitudes and poisonous advice. "Maybe you should give him more space," she'd say, her voice laced with false sympathy. "Maybe you should focus on yourself for a while." Each carefully chosen word chipped away at Emilia's already fragile confidence, pushing her further into despair. Olivia, meanwhile, used Emilia's vulnerability to her advantage, painting herself as the understanding friend, the supportive sister. James, his mind clouded by Olivia's lies and his own confusion, started to see Emilia through a distorted lens. Her late nights at work, once a sign of her dedication, now seemed suspicious. Her exhaustion, once a source of concern, now seemed like indifference. Olivia, sensing his growing distrust, fed his doubts with carefully crafted half-truths and outright fabrications. She hinted at secret phone calls, whispered about Emilia's supposed infidelity, painted a picture of a loveless marriage where James was the victim. James, his heart hardening against the woman he once loved, found himself believing Olivia's lies. The serpent's coils, woven with deceit and manipulation, were tightening their grip. Emilia, desperate to save her marriage, tried to reach out to James to rekindle the love they once shared. But James, his heart poisoned by Olivia's venom, pushed her away, his words laced with suspicion and accusation. Olivia, reveling in the chaos she had created, continued to play her part to perfection. To Emilia, she was the supportive sister, offering a shoulder to cry on, while secretly celebrating her downfall. To James, she was the understanding confidant, the woman who truly understood him, the woman who could offer him the love and affection he craved. James, lost in a haze of doubts and delusions, failed to see the truth, that the woman he was falling for was the very architect of his misery, a master manipulator who had set her sights on his life, his love, his very soul. Olivia, drunk on her own machinations, grew bolder. She believed her triumph was inevitable, that James was firmly within her grasp. She became careless, her mask of concern slipping with increasing frequency, revealing the ruthless ambition beneath. One evening, while Emilia was away on a business trip, Olivia invited James over, her intentions clear. She greeted him at the door in a dress that could only be described as provocative, a stark contrast to her usual demure attire. James, his senses reeling from her blatant seduction, felt a flicker of unease. Olivia, misinterpreting his hesitation as desire, leaned in, her lips brushing against his ear. "She's not coming back, you know," Olivia whispered, her voice thick with insinuation. "She's found someone else." The atmosphere was thick with tension, the dimly lit room casting long shadows that seemed to whisper secrets. As Olivia leaned in, her phone, resting on a nearby table, buzzed with an incoming message. The sound was almost intrusive in the heavy silence. James, his gaze drawn to the illuminated screen, saw a name that sent a chill down his spine. Sarah, Book Club. His heart pounded as he tried to make sense of it. A knot of suspicion tightened in his chest. He had always trusted Olivia, but now doubt began to creep in. Olivia had always claimed to be too busy for book clubs, dismissing them as frivolous. Her dismissive attitude now seemed like a cover. He picked up the phone, his hand trembling. The weight of the moment pressed down on him. The message displayed on the screen was like a slap in the face. It was a revelation he wasn't prepared for. "You're amazing, Liv. How did you manage to get rid of Emilia so quickly?" The words echoed in his mind, each one more painful than the last. "James is totally smitten with you." The realization hit him hard, like a punch to the gut. And to think she actually believed you were trying to help her. The betrayal was almost too much to bear. "You're a much better match for him anyway." The words were like poison seeping into his soul. She was always too boring for her own good. The smirk on Olivia's face in the message was haunting. Each word was like a shard of glass, piercing the veil of Olivia's deception. The truth was undeniable and devastating. James reread the message, each time feeling a fresh wave of nausea. The betrayal was too much to process. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Everything he thought he knew was now in question, and the future seemed uncertain and bleak. James felt a wave of shame wash over him. He had doubted Emilia, pushed her away, believed the lies that Olivia had so skillfully spun. He had been so blinded by Olivia's manipulations, by his own confusion, that he had failed to see the truth. The weight of his actions, of his betrayal, pressed down on him with suffocating force. He stared at the message, at the undeniable proof of Olivia's treachery, and a cold fury began to burn within him. Olivia, oblivious to his internal turmoil, mistook his silence for acquiescence. She leaned closer, her lips parting to speak, but James recoiled as if from a venomous snake. "Don't touch me," he growled, his voice hoarse with disgust. Olivia, startled by his sudden change in demeanour, took a step back, her eyes widening in alarm. "What's wrong, James?" Olivia asked, her voice trembling with feigned concern. "Are you all right?" James stared at her, his gaze cold and hard. He held up the phone, the incriminating message illuminated on the screen. "You lied to me," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "You lied to Emilia. You manipulated us both." Olivia's carefully constructed facade crumbled. She stammered, trying to deny the undeniable, but the words died in her throat. The look on James's face, a mixture of anger, hurt and betrayal, told her that the game was up. James felt a surge of satisfaction as Olivia's composure finally cracked. She had underestimated him, underestimated Emilia, and now she would pay the price for her treachery. "Emilia deserves to know the truth," James said, his voice cold and resolute. "But that's not enough. You're going to help me make this right." Olivia, panicked, tried to protest, but James silenced her with a look. He had a plan to expose Olivia for the liar she was, a plan to make her pay for the pain she had caused. And as James looked at the fear in Olivia's eyes, a flicker of something cold and calculating crossed his own. He would use Olivia's own tactics against her, turn her web of deceit into a trap from which she could not escape. James drove through the night, a maelstrom of emotions swirling within him: anger, betrayal, a profound sense of foolishness. He gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white, Olivia's deceitful words echoing in his ears. It was like waking from a fever dream, the world coming into sharp, painful focus. He thought of Emilia, her love, her unwavering trust. How could he have doubted her? How could he have been so easily manipulated? He had been a fool, blinded by Olivia's carefully constructed facade. Reaching home, he found Emilia in their bedroom, her suitcase half packed. Her face was pale, her eyes red-rimmed, but a spark of defiance flickered within them. "I know," she said quietly, her voice trembling slightly. "Olivia told me she'd explained everything, that you were leaving me." James's heart clenched at the pain in Emilia's voice. He moved towards her, wanting to explain, to apologize, but she held up a hand, stopping him. "Olivia didn't come to apologize, James," Emilia said, her voice surprisingly steady. "She came to gloat. She told me how she'd always envied me, how she'd always wanted what I had." Emilia's voice hardened. "She said you were better off without me, that I was holding you back." She looked at James, her eyes blazing with a fire he'd never seen before. "But she underestimated us, James. She underestimated our love, our strength." James stared at his wife, his heart swelling with a mixture of shame and admiration. Olivia had played her hand, but Emilia, even in her pain, had seen through the charade. "She won't get away with this," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "I promise you, Emilia, we'll make her pay for what she's done." Olivia revelled in her imagined victory. James was hers, she thought, her prize for a game well played. She pictured their life together, the envy in the eyes of others, the knowledge that she had finally won. She had always coveted Emilia's life, the effortless charm, the genuine love that seemed to surround her. Now she'd taken it all, leaving Emilia with nothing but the bitter taste of betrayal. Olivia had always believed that money was the key to happiness. She'd spent years cultivating relationships with wealthy men, using her charm and her cunning to secure a life of luxury. James, with his successful facade, seemed like the perfect mark. She had misjudged his financial situation, but it didn't matter. She had his heart, or so she thought, and that was all that mattered. James contacted Olivia, his voice laced with a carefully crafted desperation. He played the part of the heartbroken husband, begging for another chance, for a shoulder to cry on. Olivia, blinded by her own vanity, fell for his act completely. She saw his vulnerability as her ultimate triumph, her confirmation that he was truly hers. She welcomed him back into her web, eager to offer comfort, to solidify her hold on him. James played his part to perfection, showering Olivia with compliments, feeding her ego, all the while carefully extracting information about her finances, her investments, her carefully constructed house of cards. He discovered that Olivia's wealth was built on a foundation of lies, a carefully constructed illusion designed to attract and exploit wealthy, unsuspecting men. She had a network of contacts, shady lawyers, and offshore accounts, all meticulously hidden behind a veneer of respectability. With each passing day, James fed Olivia's delusions while secretly plotting her downfall. He contacted Emilia, who was surprisingly eager to participate in his plan. The pain of betrayal had ignited a steely resolve within her. They would use Olivia's greed against her, lure her into a trap of her own making. They would expose her for the fraud she was, strip her of her ill-gotten gains, and leave her with nothing but the ashes of her own deceit. James, with his knowledge of finance and his understanding of Olivia's weaknesses, devised a plan, audacious and risky, but with the potential to bring Olivia crashing down. It was a dangerous game they were playing, but the stakes had never been higher. Their marriage, their lives, and their very souls hung in the balance. James, a master manipulator in his own right now, played his role with chilling precision. He presented Olivia with an opportunity, a fictitious investment scheme that promised to double, no, triple, her already considerable fortune. He knew Olivia's weakness, her insatiable greed. She wouldn't be able to resist such an offer, not with the promise of such extravagant returns. He painted a picture of their future, a life of unimaginable luxury once this deal went through. He spoke of exotic holidays, sprawling mansions, a world where money was no object. Olivia, blinded by greed and her infatuation with James, swallowed the bait whole. She saw it as her ticket to ultimate security, to finally surpassing Emilia, to proving once and for all that she was the deserving one. Olivia's interest was piqued. James brought in the final piece of the puzzle, a seemingly seasoned investor, a man he introduced as a close friend and trusted business partner. In reality, he was Emilia's old university friend, a talented actor who owed Emilia a favour. Their staged camaraderie was convincing. They spoke in hushed tones about market trends, dropped names of powerful figures, created an aura of exclusivity that drew Olivia deeper into their web of deception. Olivia, blinded by her desire to secure her future with James, and fueled by the fear of missing out on such a lucrative opportunity, liquidated her assets, emptied her accounts, and poured every penny she had into the fictitious venture. She signed documents without hesitation, her mind buzzing with visions of grandeur, her trust in James absolute. With Olivia's fortune safely transferred, the charade came to an abrupt and brutal end. James, his eyes cold and devoid of any emotion, confronted Olivia, revealing the truth of his deception. He threw her own words back at her, her manipulations, her lies, her utter disregard for her own sister. "You thought you could take everything from me, from Emilia?" he asked, his voice laced with venom. "You thought you could get away with it?" Olivia, the truth crashing down around her, stammered, tried to deny the accusations, but the words died in her throat. The game was up. The investor, dropping his facade, looked at Olivia with a mixture of pity and disgust. He had played his part to perfection, but even he hadn't anticipated the depth of Olivia's treachery. Olivia, stripped bare of her ill-gotten gains, her carefully constructed life reduced to ashes, found herself utterly alone. The men she had manipulated, the friends she had used, all turned their backs on her, their disgust palpable. James, his heart hardened by Olivia's betrayal, walked away without a backward glance. He had played his part, avenged his wife, exposed Olivia for the fraud she was. He knew he would never forget the pain Olivia had inflicted, the crack she had created in his marriage. But he had also learned a valuable lesson about trust, about manipulation, about the devastating power of deceit. Emilia, though wounded by her sister's betrayal, found a strange sense of peace in Olivia's downfall. The pain of betrayal was still raw, but it was overshadowed by a sense of vindication, of justice served. Olivia had played a dangerous game and she had lost. Karma, it seemed, had come full circle. Olivia, stripped bare of her ill-gotten gains, wandered aimlessly through the city streets, her footsteps echoing in the empty night. The city, once a playground for her ambitions, now felt like a labyrinth of regret and sorrow. She was a ghost haunting the ruins of her own making, a shadow of her former self. The designer clothes, once a symbol of her success and power, now felt like a costume, a mask that could no longer hide the emptiness within her soul. The whispers followed her, the judging eyes piercing through her facade, the knowledge that her carefully constructed facade had crumbled, revealing the ugliness beneath. She had craved wealth, believing it was the key to happiness, but all she found was a gilded cage, a prison built on lies and deceit. She thought of Emilia, of the bond they had once shared, a bond she had shattered with her own selfish desires. Could she ever atone for the pain she had caused, the trust she had broken? The question echoed in the hollow chambers of her heart, a constant reminder of the price of her deceit. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the city, Olivia knew she had reached a crossroads. She could continue to wander in the darkness of her own making, or she could seek redemption, a path fraught with uncertainty, but one that offered a glimmer of hope in the ashes of her shattered life. The journey would be long, the scars of her past forever etched upon her soul. But perhaps, just perhaps, it was a journey worth taking. She had to believe that somewhere along this path she could find a way to mend the broken pieces of her life. As the shadows lengthened, Olivia took a deep breath, steeling herself for the road ahead. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in a long while, she felt a flicker of determination. She could continue to wander in the darkness of her own making, or she could seek redemption, a path fraught with uncertainty, but one that offered a glimmer of hope in the ashes of her shattered life. The journey would be long, the scars of her past forever etched upon her soul. But perhaps, just perhaps, it was a journey worth taking. The journey would be long, the scars of her past forever etched upon her soul. But perhaps, just perhaps, it was a journey worth taking.